Well, I decided to bolt the trunk lid on and make sure everything lined up before I went any further. So I still have the tailpiece out, and I'm getting ready to put in the tank straps, or the tank supports, tank reinforcement, whatever you want to call it. These are, of course, new and a little thicker than the originals. And what I did is I pushed them up underneath the car against the pan, traced them out, and then I laid out a hole pattern from underneath. I drilled. And the reason I did this is because it's easier to weld from on top than it is to lay on the ground and weld, and I can grind the welds up here and smooth them out, and it'll be just fine. So both of these are prepped. As you can see, I bared the metal where I'm going to weld. There's the left side and there's the right side, and there's just a random kind of hole pattern. And then of course they'll get welded back here on this inner support. Now I could have put on the outer tail panel, but I need to have these welded in first. I don't know if it's really that critical, but they were there originally. So there's a set of holes there and a set of holes there. The other part of that is I wanted to test fit the deck lid. So I'm pretty happy with the results. It's fitting very well. Sits up a little in the middle, which isn't unexpected, but I can adjust for that later. And pretty happy with the gaps. And once I get the tail panel in place, I can then put the latch in and make sure everything else is right. The other side of that is I still have to put in the gutter seal track. I don't know what you want to call it, but that reinforcement that runs around this perimeter for the seal, and those are laying up there. So I'll get to those later. But for now, I just want to get these supports in for the tank and finish mocking up the tail panel, and maybe try to get it in today as well. Okay, the tank reinforcements are in. I welded them and then ground down the welds. A little more finish work and some paint, that'll be just fine. But before I put the tail panel in, I remembered that there's some reinforcements that go on the quarter panel. And you can see these two welds right here. And what it is where the bumper mounts, especially with these AMD panels, this piece right here is a reinforcement, and it doesn't come attached to the quarter panel. I don't know why, but whenever they ship it, that piece is taped to the inside. So I went ahead and took care of that. And one other thing I wanted to point out, whenever I had the tail panel mocked up, I noticed right here on this where it rounds out and comes back to the trunk kind of opening here, this is rolled in too far forward. It's kind of hard to see, but whenever the panel, there it is, you can see it, whenever the tail panel is in place, it's obvious. So I'm glad I noticed that. I think it's like that on both sides, and it's kind of hard to see over there, but I wanted to point that out. This is why you mock stuff up several times and make sure that your gaps are right and everything fits right, and then make your adjustments and before you do your final weld, and that way you don't run into issues later. So getting close. Tail panel's next. Well, the tail panel is welded in now. I decided to just go ahead and get it done. And other than a few little areas where I still have to do some plug welds in different places and some trimming and some grinding, the major part of it is done. And just show you some things here. There's, of course, the welds up here on top, and I welded in the support bracket for the latch assembly. That's all in place now. And show you the gaps here. This turned out real nice up here, and it'll probably, a little bit of seam sealer to smooth in the gaps so you don't have any air gap at all. And of course it lines up real nice down here on the bottom on both sides. Pretty happy with that. Like I said, there's just a little bit more detail work to do. I still have to weld in the channels up here for the gasket, and grind down the welds in various areas up here where I welded in the quarter, and of course around the window and everything. So just a lot of little detail work right now, and hopefully I can drive on and try to get this car ready for some primer. Thought I'd show you one last thing. There's the real nice trunk gaps, and it turned out nice on both sides, so very pleased with that. A little bit of minor adjustment here, nothing to worry about, but that'll turn out really good. And of course, along the gap on the bottom here where the trunk lid meets the tail panel, turned out pretty nice. Once the gas gets in, this will come up just a little bit, and I think it looks pretty good.